Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As it was mentioned at the introduction, during the last few months, we have been trying to discuss together about the idea of what is faith and what is the source of faith, the psychological roots of faith and the spiritual roots of faith. And we talked that ultimately faith means trust. And psychologically, of course, we develop trust in the context of a healthy, orderly, trustworthy family. Because if we, from the earliest days of our lives, we don't see that kind of a consistency in the family, then we begin to doubt everything and everybody. We cannot trust anybody. And if we cannot trust, we cannot have faith. Because at the foundation of trust is the ability to trust. So, but all of us wouldn't have fortune of having good families, and therefore we have to try them later in life as we become more adult, more capable, gradually reorient ourselves and understand the world from a different perspective rather than childhood experiences, and eventually begin to be able to trust ourselves and to trust each other and to trust life and hopefully to trust God. It takes doing. It's not easy, especially when we live in a world that doesn't trust anything. Nobody trusts anybody. Governments don't trust their people, people don't trust governments, religions don't trust each other, scientists don't trust religious people don't trust scientists, and on and on and on. So we live in a very, very difficult world as with regard to the issue of faith and trust. And in the midst of this comes a new religion. And it is not even called religion generally, it's called faith, the Baha'i Faith. So the question was, we asked ourselves, why Baha'i Faith is called Baha'i Faith? Is it a religion? And if it is a religion, is it similar to other religions or different from other religions? In what way it is similar and in what way it is different? So this is the focus of our discourse tonight. So as far as similarities are concerned, there are at least 4 areas that are very important that the Baha'i Faith is similar to all other revealed religions. You know, there are 2 kinds of religions. Religions that are based on a founder that is a messenger of God, is coming from God, has a book, as a holy book, has a large established following, and has proven itself to be conducive to creating a civilization. These are only few in human history. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, on one side, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Zoroastrian religion. There are altogether of 8 religions that are revealed religions. There are a lot of religions that things that ideas that call religions, but they are made up by people. So that's different. Okay. So we are talking about revealed religions. These religions have the following foundations. One, they all say there is a God. Okay. Second, they say that God's relationship with humanity is to the founders of these religions. They give them different names. In Christianity, Jesus Christ is called Son of God. In Islam, Muhammad is called the Prophet of God, and so forth. But they are coming from God. And also, all religions, they say that life has a purpose. And if we want to put it in a broadest sense, the purpose of life is to be good and to do good. To be good and to do good. But the definition of good is different for different people. Okay, we will talk about that. And then finally, all of these religions say that there is a life after death. That there is another life beyond this life. But of course, we know about next life as much as we knew about this life when we were in the wombs of our mothers.
Not much.
We didn't know anything. Okay. So that's the general areas of agreement between the Baha'i Faith and other major religions of the world. But in each of these areas, the Baha'i Faith has a very special way of understanding these issues. For example, yes, there is a God, but we do not know anything about God. Anything that we imagine is the characteristic of God is our imagination. Because if God is our creator and we are created, a created entity cannot know the creator. Okay, example, there is no examples of it, but for example, doesn't matter how smart a computer is, the computer cannot understand the computer maker. Okay, that's two different way of knowing, levels of knowing. Okay, so from a Baha'i perspective, it's really useless to sit and talk about nature of God and so forth. The closest we can get to know God is to know the messenger of God, the representative of God, which in Baha'i terminology is called the manifestation of God. It means that throughout history, approximately between 600 and 1,000 years throughout history, somebody has emerged in somewhere in the world. And suddenly, is an ordinary person. Suddenly that person comes and says that he has a message from God. And by doing that, that person totally changes the structure of the society in which they live. For example, think about it the way Jesus came to this world. Here he was, this young man of no importance, like the rest of the people, but came and said, I have a message from God. And the way he talked, the language that he had, the way of his life was as such that attracted first few and then many, and then many people from around the world. And that was 2,000 years ago. And still there are people going around calling themselves Christians and trying to live their lives according to that. This is really remarkable when you think of it. Here was this man in Arabia, a nobody, the name of Muhammad. And he comes and he begins to say, yeah, I have a message from God. And sure enough, several hundred years later, here we are. And there are millions and millions, 1 billion people around the world who are saying, yeah, we are followers of Muhammad, and they are doing all kinds of things, good and bad, in the name of Muhammad. There are billions of people doing all kinds of things in the name of Jesus Christ, good and bad, all over. Okay? And when we look at the history of these people, we see that at the height of their positive impact, these religions have had enormous impact on the life of humanity, and they have totally shaped human civilizations. So we have Christian civilization, we have Hindu civilization, Buddhist civilization, Islamic civilization, Jewish civilization, Zoroastrian, Persian civilizations. All of these civilizations took place as a result of these people coming. From a Baha'i perspective, God creates us as human beings out of His love. And then He gives us 2 areas of knowledge, of understanding. One is the area of science and arts, that we human beings, because we have the capacity, the power to understand, we have a mind, we have a creative mind and inquisitive mind, we develop arts and sciences, and we understand the dynamics of the physical world and how this world is. This is one area of human understanding. The other area of human understanding is, okay, now that we know these things, now that we have this science, now that we have these artistic capacities, how are we going to use them? Are we going to use them for the good of people or against people? For the betterment of life or destruction of life? Which is the whole issue of moral, ethical issues. The whole issue of doing good and being good. So religion gives us the blueprint, the framework to use all our capacities for the betterment of all life. That's the purpose of religion. The purpose of religion is to bring about love, truth, justice, compassion to life of humanity, and help us to use our sciences and arts to create a civilization of peace. That's the fundamental purpose of religion. And every religion has that fundamental purpose. But there are not many religions in this world. There is only one religion. The same way that there is one God, there is one religion. Okay? But in the same way that science is progressive, there are not many sciences, there's only one scientific truth. Okay? The same way that science progresses, religion also progressive. As humanity grows and matures on this planet, our understanding of life has evolved. At one time, we thought that the earth was flat. At another time, we realized that the earth was round. At one time, we thought that the sun was going around us. Now we understand that we go around the sun. At one time, we human beings thought that we are totally distinct from animals. Now we understand that in a biological sense, we are continuation of life and are connected to each other. So our understanding of ourselves evolves. Along with that, our spiritual understanding, our moral, ethical understanding has to evolve. And that comes through religion. So there are not many religions in this world. There are only the same religions that evolving, growing, expanding as humanity grows and expands. So the message of Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism and Zoroastrian and Judaism and Baha'i Faith are all the same. But they are expanded according to the level of maturity of humanity. And now we human beings are at that very crucial age of collectively moving from adolescence to adulthood. Humanity until now has been in the stages of childhood and adolescence. And behavior of the world right now is a behavior of a lot of children and adolescents in this world. And of course, the most childish adolescents of the world are the leaders of the world. Political leaders, religious leaders, scientific leaders, look at them. All of them acting in very, very either childish, like dictators, or adolescent bravado, like those who believe in multi-party adversarial democracies. This is the condition of the world of humanity today. Humanity today is in its final stages of collective adolescence. And the conditions that we see in the world, the conflict that we see in the world, the preoccupation with pleasures and with fighting and with violence that we see in the world, they are the characteristics of an adolescent age having gone wrong. This is what we are experiencing. The age of adulthood is the age in which a number of fundamental things has to happen. The first thing that has to happen is that the distribution and use of power change. Until now, during childhood and adolescence, power has been in the hands of men. And men, whether they have been political leaders or religious leaders or community leaders or even household leaders, have abused everybody that has been in possession of less power, which is usually women and children. Okay? The first thing that has to happen is that we have to have equality, a truly meaningful equality between men and women, equality of the rights and opportunity between different races, equality of the rights and opportunities between men and poor and rich. Look what happened in London. All of those people who killed in that inferno, they were poor people. They were poor people who lived in that awful place that happened a few days ago. You see? This is the kind of things that is happening in our world every day. So this is the age. This is the fundamental message of the Baha'i Faith. This is the age in which we have to fundamentally change the dynamics of human relationships and the distribution of power and authority has to change. The way that we organize ourselves, the way we relate to each other, all of them have to be of a different kind. And I briefly would describe what that different kind means. But as you see, the Baha'i Faith therefore sees that there is only one religion. There are not many religions. There is one God. There is one message of God to humanity. This message continuously is renewed. And now at this age, the Baha'i Faith contains all of the positive teachings of all religions of the past, plus necessary teachings for the coming of age of humanity, to help humanity to move from its collective childhood and adolescence to age of maturity, adulthood and maturity. This is the moment that we live. Okay? And the fundamental characteristic of the maturity of humanity, age of maturity, is the realization that there is only one race of humanity. One race of humanity. And in this race of humanity is diverse in its expression. Nobody is similar to anybody. We are all unique. Every human being is unique. Even identical twins are different. Everybody is unique. Every race is unique. Every group of people, every nation, they are unique. But uniqueness doesn't mean separateness. Uniqueness means different expressions of oneness. Okay? And this is what we have to understand. How oneness and uniqueness come together. Put it in differently is the way that we have to understand that we are diverse people, but we have to unite, be in a stage of unity in diversity. So that's the dynamics that takes place in this. So the fundamental teaching of the Baha'i Faith is that would be wrong. We say, let's compare religions. You don't compare religions. It's like somebody coming to you and say, let's compare sciences. We believe in flat earth and you believe in not flat earth, and let's compare to see. You don't do that. There is only one science. There is one religion. You have to understand what are the dynamics and characteristics of the spiritual teachings for this age to help humanity to move from childhood and adolescence to adulthood. Okay. So that's one of the unique aspects of the Baha'i Faith. The other thing is that many times I have heard that people say, I don't want any organized religion. And when you listen to people, what they mean by organized, they mean that I don't want a religion that somebody, a religious authority, a priest, a Kohen, a rabbi, a mullah, an ayatollah, comes to you and says, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. And they organize religion according to hierarchy. First, the most important hierarchy is that women have no place in the upper echelon of religion. That's wrong. That's number one. Women are out. Okay. Second, that our religion is the best and is the true religion. Others are not. Third, that we have to defend our religion and therefore we have to be in conflict with others. Okay? Therefore, organized religion has been a process of authoritarian structure of religion to control the masses of humanity.
Amen.
Right? Control the masses of humanity. That's what it means by organized religion. And organized religion with the clergy and priesthood and mullahs at the top have done enormous damage to humanity and continue to do so. So, Baha'u'llah came and said, no more priests. In Baha'i Faith, you don't have clergies, you don't have priests, you don't have ayatollahs, you don't have anybody who is spiritually superior over anybody. Men and women, all of them are equal in the domain of spirituality. Everybody has his or her way of communing with God, understanding Godhood, and relating to creation and organizing his or her life. This is a fundamental freedom, a spiritual freedom that the Baha'i Faith brought, Baha'u'llah gave to humanity. Baha'u'llah said, the first duty of every individual is to independently search for truth. That you have to understand the truth through your own eyes. You have to understand it through your own knowledge. And you have to then accept the responsibility of what you believe and how you put your belief into action and how you live your life accordingly. This is not an age in which somebody else tells you what to do and how to do. So as such, the Baha'i Faith is not an organized religion. But there is an issue here, fundamental issue, namely that freedom takes place in the context of order. You see, order and freedom go hand in hand. Disorder takes away freedom. For example, most of us tonight came by car, right? And you were driving, and nobody was in front of you, and there was a stop sign, and you stopped. Okay? You stopped. Imagine if everybody says, I am free, nobody is going to tell me what to do, and nobody obeyed the lights, the traffic lights. Imagine what would happen. Chaos. Order requires freedom, and order have to be together. I remember many years ago, I went to Saskatoon, to home of a very good friend of mine, an artist, a remarkable, renowned artist in Canada, Otto Rogers. Otto Rogers is a remarkable artist. His paintings sell for $100,000 and so forth, so he's doing well. And Otto was in his studio, and he had a canvas and just starting. And I turned to Otto and said, Otto, and his name is Don also. I said, Don, I'm surprised because on the canvas, the first thing that he had done was that he had put boundaries on the canvas. Okay? And I said, what are you doing, Don? I thought that the artists are free and they can do whatever they want. And here you have the first thing that you have done on this canvas is to put a boundary there. And he said to me, yeah, that's why I'm artist and you're not. Yeah, you don't understand art. Because if you want to create, you have to have orders. Okay? And he said, look, your wife is a ballerina. I said, yes. He said, does she just jump up and down without any order? I said, no, she listens to the music and she goes exactly according to the music. It's the order that is there. He said, yeah, you see, this is the fact of life. Creativity requires order. The music that we heard was so pleasing because it had order. So freedom and order go hand in hand. So Baha'u'llah, by bringing freedom to humanity, removing priesthood and removing all of those hierarchical situations, said, okay, now let's create a new civilization and a new global community, worldwide Baha'i community. And he said, at the core of the operation of this community is the principle of justice. Principle of justice. He said, no society would be able to be truly free unless there is justice. So we have to have houses of justice in every village, every city, every country, and whole world. We should have houses of justice. And these houses of justice have to be created by people in that every location. And at the present time, these houses of justice in the Baha'i world have 9 members. So if you go around the world, you go to small villages, you go to towns, you go to countries, and globally, you will see there are houses of justice. At this time, we call them spiritual assemblies, okay, with the exception of one. But they are all houses of justice. They're coming houses of justice, evolving towards becoming house of justice. And how do you elect? What is the Baha'i elections? In the Baha'i elections, there is no nomination. There is no running for the office. there is no propaganda.
No campaigning.
There is nothing of everything that you see in here. What happens is that once a year on a specific day, Baha'is come together, say prayers, and then everybody writes down the name of 9 persons secretly that he or she thinks are most qualified to be on the House of Justice, on the Spiritual Assembly. And the 9 that emerge with the top vote, they become members of the House of Justice for 1 year.
1 week?
1 year.
Oh.
And then you can be repeatedly elected, but for 1 year, okay? And therefore, you never know who is going to be elected. And if there are on the 9th, there are 2 people who are we have equal votes, then the vote should go, the person who is a minority would be on the assembly, on the House of Justice. Because minorities in the world have suffered. So we have to do something with, this is fundamental of justice. For example, Baha'u'llah said that every child has to be educated. But if it happens that somewhere in a family they have boys and girls, and only one of them can be educated, it should be the girl, not the boy. Because the girls are going to be mothers. And mothers have far more impact on the life of society than plumbers and, all of the things that men do, God knows anyway. So that's the kind of notion that is there. So Baha'u'llah said, yes, we have freedom, and we have freedom to elect our houses of justice, and men and women are on it, and they have the responsibility to put the orders of society in such a way that is accordance to principles of equality, justice, unity, and peace. Equality, justice, unity, and peace. This is a very fundamental issue. Many years ago, there was a meeting of Model United Nations. You know what is Model United Nations meetings? Your high schools and universities students gather together once a year in a huge event and create a model UN for a week. And they become representatives of different countries, Afghanistan and Zaire and here and there. And they do everything that UN does in order to learn about the UN. So one of those was taking place in Regina and at the University of Manitoba. And I was representative of the Baha'i community in that event. The Baha'i community was one of the sponsors of the event. The government of Canada was another one. The university was the third one. And there was one other sponsor. So we came, and there were about 1,200 people in the hall. And they said, okay, at the beginning of the event, every sponsor would talk for 20 minutes. And they started with the university president, because we were at the university, and then went to United Nations representatives. And the third one was the representative of Government of Canada, and the fourth one was Baha'i community. the last one. So the third one, the first one went about 15 minutes or so. The second one about 15, 20 minutes. The third one was a politician, and we were close to election time, and he started talking and talking and talking and talking, and I think he's still talking. Okay. So the chair tried everything to calm him down, but he didn't listen. He talked, and finally he stopped. And the chair turned to me and said, "You have 5 minutes." I said, "All right." So I said to people that were there, to the young people, I said, "Well, you have come here to learn about peace. And in order to know how to establish peace, first you have to establish the main prerequisite for peace. And main prerequisite for peace is unity. And in order to establish unity, you have to know what is the main prerequisite for unity. And prerequisite for unity is justice. The purpose of justice is to create unity. And in order to establish justice, you have to establish the prerequisite for justice. And prerequisite for justice is equality. And in order to establish equality, you have to have prerequisite for equality. And prerequisite for equality is universality. Is to become mature, evolve, universal persons. When you become that, you can relate to others on equal basis. Mm-hmm. You can become agents of justice. You can create unity, and then we would have peace. It took 2 minutes. Mm. So I turned to the politician and said, "You have 3 minutes." Which wasn't nice, but I did it. So, but you see what I mean. This is the Baha'i community, therefore, functions in that mode. That in order for us to create an equal, just, united, and peaceful society around the world, we as individuals have to become universal people. Our minds have to become universal. All world. Our emotions, our sentiments have to become universal, all-encompassing. Our actions should be for the welfare of all humanity and not for only a specific group. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's what we have to do. That's the dynamics of maturation, of coming of age of humanity. That's the way we have to do it. Therefore, these houses of justice have the responsibility to create the necessary environment for the parents, for people, for everybody, to begin to live according to these principles, to raise next generation of children and youth according to these principles, and to begin to change our way of thinking. And all of these, if you think about it, universality, equality, justice, unity, and peace, all of them are different expressions of love. At the core of everything is that we have to learn how to love. How to love in a mature way. Until now, humanity's relationship with God has been based on fear. religions in the past, because humanity has been in childhood and adolescent level, have described the relationship between humanity and God on the foundations of reward and punishment. If you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. It's simple, okay? For children understand that. Children, humanity in childhood understood that, okay? And for the adolescents in Islam, for example, they say if you're good, you go to heaven, and you're going to have a lot of huris and all kind of nice things in heaven also. Okay?
72.
That's 72 of them.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. And so that has been the childhood and adolescent way of understanding religion. But in this religion, in Baha'i Faith, our relationship with God is based on mature love. What is the main characteristic of mature love? Mature love has to be reciprocal. I love you, so you can love me. Love cannot be one directional. Mature love is common, is reciprocal. So Baha'u'llah said, love me, so I may love thee. Not because God is not loving, but because if I am not loving, I cannot be loved. I cannot receive love either. Have you experienced people who cannot receive love?
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult to live with them. Because it doesn't matter what you do, they don't accept it. And then they go, oh, I suffered so much, I did so much for you, and nobody loved me. But they cannot accept love, okay? So the whole thing, if we want to create a universal, equal, just, united, peaceful world, we have to understand how to love in mature way. And at the highest level is, of course, love of God. Therefore, in the Baha'i Faith, you have a covenant between God and humanity. Covenant happens between mature entities, okay? You cannot have a contract between two entities, one is mature and the other one is not. So for the first time, God, Baha'u'llah said, I establish a covenant with you, meaning I'm dealing with you as a mature human being. You don't need to follow priests and popes and mopes and all of those. But what you have to do now to accept responsibility and live your life according to these universal spiritual, moral, ethical principles. And your fundamental purpose in this life is to create a civilization of peace. And you create civilization of peace by being agents of justice, agents of equality, agents of universality, agents of unity. That's what you do. And then Baha'u'llah gave other tools for doing that, like Baha'i consultation and so forth. We don't have the time to talk about it tonight. But as you see, the Baha'i Faith, yes, is similar to other religions, but is very different in the sense that the teachings of the Baha'i Faith, although contains all of the pure teachings of Christianity, of Islam, of Buddhism, of other religions, all of them are put in a framework that is conducive to age of maturation of humanity, to our age. I am reminded of a time I was in Indore, India, and I had been invited to go there one of the Baha'is in that city had an enormous number of Montessori schools. There were thousands and thousands of students in the Montessori school there. And they had invited me to go and visit. His name was Mr. Gandhi.
Oh, Mahatma Gandhi?
No,
That Gandhi?
not Mahatma Gandhi, but of that same kind of a nature of that kind. So anyway, I arrived at the time that there was in that region tremendous agitation between Muslims and Hindus over a mosque. The mosque had been built on a site that the Hindus said it was a sacred place for them. And therefore, they demanded that the mosque be destroyed so that they can build a Hindu temple.
So they waited until the mosque was built to...
It had been built
protest.
many hundreds of years before.
I see.
The mosque was already there.
Oh,
So it was an enormous chaos in the region. And when the governor heard that a visitor has come to town who specializes in unity, decided, sent a messenger to me. He said, "Are you willing to talk about unity at a very large group?" I said, "Sure." So the governor organized this huge event. Thousands of people were there in an arena. And I went there, and they did all of the nice Indian things that they do, and they put what you call it, of flowers around my neck, and I have an allergy. So I knew that if I let that flowers to stay, I wouldn't be able to talk. So I said to the governor, I ask your permission. I want to keep them in good shape, and in my talking I move my hands a lot. Would you allow me to take them off and put them there until take it later? He said yes, so I took it and put it there. And people were there, and I gave my talk, and the governor introduced it, and I gave my talk on unity. And then after the talk on unity, all the Indian friends went like that, which I thought they didn't like it, but they liked it. But they liked it. But so, and then after that, we had a press conference. And the press conference was in a room like this, and there were tables all around, and people sitting behind the tables, and it was extremely hot. Extremely hot. So everybody had a glass or a cup in front of them with some drink and so forth. And they started asking questions. And the first question came from the most important journalist who was there. He was representative of all India radio and television, so that was the most important person. So he said, "Okay, sir, you have to come here and talk about unity. Now, what would you do if I bring to you tomorrow the leaders of Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs to here? What you would tell them in order to create unity?" Okay? Because these people have been at each other for centuries. Now that's a very difficult question. And whenever people ask me difficult question, I always have learned I have to take my time and so pray. So hopefully I would be inspired, you see. So I picked up my glass and slowly because I wanted to be inspired. And sure enough, as soon as I did that, I noticed something. Everybody had a glass or a cup. But the glasses and the cups were of different shapes. They had different colors. They had different designs on them. So I said, you all have cups here, And in these cups, there is water. I said, every religion is like a cup with the water in it, water of life. Okay. At the beginning, the container is very simple. Simple, transparent, like this. And in it, there is a pure water of life, teachings of those religions. But gradually, people are self-centered. People want to establish their own identity. People want to say we are better than others. They compete with each other. So they begin to, first of all, do all kind of different designs on their containers. They put pictures on them that they will do this and they do that, and build temples and build mosques, and they build different sites for worship that they look different, and some have minarets and some don't, and so forth. And then also, because it's a container, they start adding things to the container. They add a little bit of prejudice, they add a little bit of superstition, they add a little bit of nonsense about this group and that group and that group. And these things are heavy, go down. And gradually as they go down, the water of life comes out. So at the end, they have beautiful containers filled with prejudice, superstition, and mistrust. If you bring them tomorrow to me, I ask them to empty their containers and put back the original teachings of their religions in it. And you will see all are the same. This is a reality. Okay? But we have misunderstood. We have misunderstood religion. We have misapplied the teachings of religion. And now we have come to reject religion. We are age of rejection of religion. But if we understand religion in its purest form and in its progressive form and its ultimate objective to create justice, unity, equality, and peace in this world and bring about the age of maturity of humanity, then we have a totally different relationship with religion. So that's what makes Baha'i Faith unique. It is the same as other religions and is different at the same time. Okay, I spoke a lot. My apologies. Any questions, any comments?
Oh, I have so many, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Okay, you start. One of
Do
you.
I get to start?
Sure, any.
Okay, it's so many. I don't want to be selfish. Thank you, first of all. You have expressed ideas in such a beautifully articulate way that I've never heard from another human being in my life.
You're so kind.
And I'm not just trying to be kind, that's the truth. I've listened to hours of the greatest scholars, the greatest thinkers ever, and no one has ever captured the essence of what's going on in our world today the way you have. It's absolutely remarkable. Remarkable. However, Dr. Danesh, here's my question. My all-consuming, overarching question is, in all this evolution of humanity, as you say, from one religion to another, and by the way, they're all stuck with theirs, right? That's another issue. Can we not take out this whole concept of God? Would it alter the evolution in any way, shape, or form? Why does there have to be a God in all of this matter of humanity? Why do we need a God? I mean, humanity had hundreds and thousands of gods in the past. We've eliminated all but one. Why do we hold on to this last one? Can you respond to that?
Well, you see, when you ask the scientists, what is the origin of this life and this existence? They say Big Bang,
That's one theory.
Yes, right? That's the fundamental theory nowadays. And you ask, what about before the Big Bang? And there's no answer, right? So that's unknowable, okay?
Right.
The God that we're talking about also is unknowable. You don't need to talk about it. You don't understand it, okay? What really is at issue here, for a serious person of search like yourself, is to read the writings of the Baha'i Faith, okay? And in order to, you see, every area of human understanding, every science has its own language, right? Chemistry has its own language.
Its own vocabulary, lexicon.
Music
Yes.
has its own language,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Dance has its own language. Mathematics has its own language. We have to understand the language of the area of study. Okay? Religion has its own language. Okay? When we understand the language of revelation, the issue of Godhood, the way you describe it, disappears. A new understanding evolves. And that understanding is this, to the best of my understanding, is this, that we human beings are here not through our own will, but through whatever process that has brought us to this world, okay? And we have a power to understand and to search. And we realize that no matter how much we know, the more we know, the less we know.
Yes.
Avicenna, the remarkable philosopher of Persia, he was also a physician. And his books of medicine, about medicine, he called the Book of Law, was the textbook of medical schools in Europe for 300 years. Okay. He also wrote a book about law, and he called it the Book of Healing. Okay. His medical book was the Book of Law. His legal book was Book of Healing. And he was a poet.
Yes, of course.
Okay, he was a philosopher, he was a poet. And at the end of his life, he wrote a poem. He said, تا بدونجا رسید دانش من تا بدانم همی که نادانم. He said, Now my knowledge has reached to the point
Or I know nothing.
that I know that I do not know. Okay. So when we begin to try to understand spiritual realities, and by that matter scientific realities, and by that matter creative realities, the more we know, the less we know. Okay? So in the Baha'i Faith, the concept of God is not used in the same way that everybody is using it as a ruler of the world. The concept of Godhood, one of the best way I understand it, is as that process of us loving the source of absolute truth, love, and goodness. Okay? That's the closest that you can get in relationship with the God that is unknowable totally. And in order to do that, we have to understand his manifestation, which for this age is baha'u'llah and the teachings of Baha'i Faith. Okay? So as you begin to understand those teachings, you see, then you will be surprised how different that concept of Godhood is. I think I have described it to some degree in one of my books here. This one, I think. Let me look. I have to remind myself what I put and what I didn't put in this book. These are mine.
You haven't memorized them?
When you get busy writing so many things, you get confused, which I honestly have. But there is, I think, here the nature and purpose of religion, and then a Baha'i Faith about the religion renewed, and then the nature and purpose of human life. In that section, I have tried to describe the way of looking at life, very fundamentally free from that oppressive, authoritarian concept of Godhood that you described. That doesn't exist in the Baha'i Faith. When you start familiarizing yourself with the language of the Baha'i Faith, don't be thrown out at the beginning when you start reading the Baha'i writings, Baha'i scriptures, because they are written in the language that is like language of other religions, and it would make you very uncomfortable, after listening to you. But persevere, and you will be surprised after a while how the whole thing is different once you understand the language. Probably by start reading the prayers of the Baha'i Faith, you will see how different they are from other prayers. And hopefully, I didn't give you a satisfactory answer, but that's the best of my ability at this time.
For now.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Oh, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I have several questions. So, so when you were talking about, the hierarchies, you've got the superior and the inferior, right? And the other religions where we have the authoritative figure, and then when you're talking about unity and love, my understanding is that, and those cups, you have all these human beings, we're all uniquely different. Our fingerprints are all uniquely different. We know that, even twins, like you said, right?
Diversity, uniqueness.
So, yes, but what I'm seeing is, in the Baha'i Faith, is you've got all these differences, but the differences don't make a difference.
That's right. Differences are the cause of beauty of wholeness,
appreciation, and loving others.
The wholeness.
Yes. And so then, when we were talking about, like the superior and the inferior, we've got, we have all different orders and structures where certain behaviors are preferred, certain races are preferred, or seen superior. And then we talk about truth. Now, let's just assume we're just talking about all good behavior here. Okay? And we're all just as different as those fingerprints. But we live in a world that is structured in a way in which we have winners and we have losers. You behave a certain way, you're a winner. You behave another way, you're a loser. So how do we find our truth in that? Because we're all uniquely different, you see.
Yeah, you see, we, right now, as I mentioned earlier, we live in a world that is in the final stages of adolescence, okay? And therefore, we have created a world like a jungle, which a law of the survival of the fittest is in operation, okay? And we have to survive in this world, okay? All of us have to survive in this world. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn some of the laws of how to survive in a jungle, a jungle of humanity, okay? And we all have to a certain degree. But at the same time, because we are intelligent human beings, and we realize that it's not a good idea to live in jungle, okay? We have to also devote some of our talents and capacities to making this world better, to change this world, okay? And the most effective way that every human being can change, bring about change, is by being authentic, by being the embodiment of truth, of love, of care, of compassion. And everybody looks at you. Some they say she is a loser. Mm-hmm. But others would be touched. And others would ask, a few would ask you, what is it? And the few actually agree with you and join you, start, say, yes, yeah, we can create a world that is equal and just and nice. Let's do it. Let's work together. Let's raise our children like that. If we are teachers, let's teach our students like that. You see, that's what we want to do. So we simultaneously, we have to learn how to survive in the jungle. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, how to transform the jungle. Mm-hmm. This, as a Baha'i, that's the way I feel. Okay, I am living in a jungle. I have to survive in a jungle. I am subject to the problems of jungle. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have to live my life to contribute a little bit at least, trying to change the jungle and make it a civilized, a place of civilization. You see, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. But the challenges are there, but we can do it. We can change. We have created this world the way it is. Mm-hmm. We can change it and make it better. There's no reason why we couldn't, because this is our production. Okay, we are the masters of this world. So let's change it. Let's change it for the better.
And could we have science without faith?
Of science without faith causes bombs, this and that and that and that. Okay, so science without faith is dangerous, and faith without science is superstition. Okay, they have to go hand in hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One more. So you see that string of lights, right? I was looking at that string of lights, and you're talking about all these messengers and such, and then there's one God. So you think about the plug in the walls, the one God, and those are all the messengers, right?
That's right.
Well, I noticed that all these messengers, they were like they didn't have any siblings. Like they were all on their own. Did you notice that? Do you notice that about them?
Yeah. Yes, they don't.
So Jesus had brothers.
And they did, but they disappeared.
But we don't hear about them.
You see, they disappeared. Yeah. They are not important, because Jesus, as a human individual, wasn't important. it was the teachings of Jesus. That's very important, okay? It was the teachings that touched hearts, okay? We, in our age now, we have materialized, have made Jesus material, okay? Jesus was spiritual, we have made him material, okay? We are raising money in the name of Jesus, and we are doing all kind of, fights in the name of Jesus, and all kind of things we have done in the name of Jesus. But
Like
Jesus,
Che Guevara. He's like a Che Guevara.
yeah, like it, or somebody like that. Yeah, but Jesus is not like. Jesus was the teachings of love that he brought to this world, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
You already answered my question, but still I want to ask it in my way,
Yes.
to clear it in my own mind. That in this age, in our writings, in the Baha'i writings, we read that the power has been taken from the clergy
That's
and
right.
ecclesiastic and has begun to people.
To the people. Yes.
So this power that Baha'u'llah is talking about is just by individually changing, or how are we going to use this power?
Oh no! You see, when Baha'u'llah in the 1890s, okay, he said 80s, 60s, and 90s, when he said, we have taken power from the leaders of the world and given to the people, okay? Who were the holders of power? Were dictators around the world and religious leaders around the world, okay? Since then, what has happened?
I see.
All the colonial empires have collapsed. All the dictators, one by one, have been deposed. Few that are left, like in North Korea and here and there, they are obsolete. They are going to go. Instead, democracies have emerged. So the power has been taken away from dictators, have been given to adolescent people, humanity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Childish. Never mind.
Adolescent. Okay, it has been done, but it has been taken. It has been distributed. Power has been distributed. Okay, to people. And clergy have lost their power. Religions have lost their authority. Less and less people believe in religions. You see, so all of those has happened. Now, and we have to create a new civilization. We have to create a new world order. And look what has happened. Since then, we had basically three kinds of ways of ordering society has emerged: communist and the capitalist democracies and religious modes of governance. Okay, communism has collapsed. Capitalism, democracies are in a state of crisis. Look what's happening. Look happening in the United States. Look what's happening in Europe. Look what's happening all over the world. And religious modes of government in Iran or Islamic State or Saudi Arabia and this and that. Look what is happening. All of them are losing their legitimacy, have lost their legitimacy. They have lost their capacity to govern. And they are going to collapse. But humanity has a funny habit. We will not change our minds until we are totally beaten.
Yes, why?
Yeah.
Why does it always have to go to that point? Why does everything good has to be a struggle? This is my consuming. I'm sorry. I'm so passionate about this.
Because we are addicted. Oh. Because we are addicted to self-aggrandizement.
Aggrandizement.
We are addicted.
No one's ever answered that question for me.
We are addicted to making ourselves greater than everybody.
Yes.
Our nation greater than everybody.
Yes. Our identity.
Group identity. Because we are adolescent humanity.
Yes.
Identity, okay? So we are
Yes,
addicted
yes,
to that.
Yes.
And that's why. But after a while, we are going to we are going to soon realize
It's
that is
happening.
not going to happen. It's happening.
It's
It's
happening.
collapsing.
Yeah.
Everything is collapsing
Yeah.
because there were only two ways of doing it. Humanity would change either by changing our worldview
Yes.
and say, yeah, this is the reality, I'm going to live this way,
It-
or being broken
Yes.
and then say, okay, yeah, you're right, I would do that.
And countries, I'm sorry, everyone in a country unites when there's an outside
Yes,
threat.
right, yeah.
But now our threat is global.
Global,
And that, I
absolutely.
think, is going to be
That's
one
it.
of our biggest tipping points.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what it is.
That's what's uniting the
That's
world.
right.
Yeah, but all these dictators, how different would the world be if they all knew what it was like to have a beating heart beneath their ribs? A beating heart, like
Yes.
women know.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
understand the value of life.
Exactly.
Because we know what that is
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So if we had dictators that understood that, the value of life, would we be
We
dropping
need
bombs
women
on other people's
dictators.
children?
Well, they won't.
Women dictators, you mean, no?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, if
I
men have
fully
that
agree with you.
opportunity,
I
then
fully
maybe
agree.
they would.
Women are way more evolved than men. That's what the biggest fear of man
That's true.
is.
That's true.
Is the superiority of women.
That's true, because women throughout history have evolved
way ahead of
in
men.
the path
Way
of
ahead.
compassion and love and caring.
Yeah.
Yes.
Men
yes.
have been preoccupied with who is stronger than who.
It's
But I'm pushing you back because
Okay, tell me.
in this world order, we cannot say that women are superior.
Well, we
if
can
we
just
want
know
to
it.
change
No, we
that.
are
Yeah.
talking about equality.
We have to bring men to.
superior than
We
that.
have to bring men to that level.
Equality.
Mothers have to bring their
We
sons
need
to
to
that
Absolutely.
level.
Yeah, that would
Absolutely.
be great.
I
if
say
we
this
could do
in no kind of tongue-in-cheek way.
Speaking
it's a
speaking
fact.
of that, this is what I have written in my new book.
Is that the new one?
It's called The
Unity-Based.
Unity-Based Family,
Uh-huh.
an empirical study of healthy marriage, family, and parenting.
Yeah.
This
Nice.
is exactly
Yes.
what
Yes.
I'm describing in this book, of how mothers to raise
Yes,
their
yes,
children,
and
but particularly
especially
their
their
sons, in a
Sons.
different way.
I want that book. Can you buy that one too?
You know, that's right.
There are other copies.
No,
Is this the only one?
this is my only one.
Oh.
It just has come out, and they sent me from England. All right, dear friends.
I have